So in this video, we're going to be talking about JPQL, and we are going to be building a nice search bar in our app with JPQL. And we are going to be building a search bar because search bars oftentimes are a lot easier to implement. And they also make it so that you don't have to implement a bunch of very intricate filter buttons on the side here and waste a bunch of time. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement this with this thing called JPQL. And we've already established that we can build methods just by matching up the title name with the actual field name in our model. Just type it out and Spring Data will automatically generate the code for us. But this isn't fine-tuned enough, and just relying on Spring Data to implement all of the SQL for you can cause huge performance problems. And there are two ways to spot performance problems. Number one, obviously the app is slow. And number two is if you look down into your console and you see huge lines of SQL, that is a cause for concern. And that is also another reason that you implement JQL to solve those performance issues. And the way that you actually implement your own SQL query is you have this query annotation, and you just put the SQL query inside of the annotation, strap it onto your method, and what do you know? You can quickly go through all of your app. But you kind of need to know what's going on here. So what is being passed into the parameter, and what is all this stuff up here? So I'll just give you a quick primer on what this SQL is. This is going to go into our database table, which is our club repository, which is tied to our club model. So this is essentially our model. This is a nickname. This is also called an alias for our model, and we declare our alias right here. And then we are going to do essentially a filter. So where c.title, this is the actual field, and this is the actual SQL column, like, and this is another important SQL word, where the query is equal to this. So this is our query. This is the actual data that's going to be passed into this SQL query. And the second most important part, besides this part right here, is going to be the like. And like is essentially a search keyword. Like means find things that are like this. But what is the difference between like and a regular filter? Like is going to search for words within a word. Where will filter, but it won't search within the text, hence why we use like. We can also use this thing called contains. But you need to be careful about contains in SQL because contains can also cause performance problems due to something called indexing and full text search. So make sure that you study up on whichever database that you're using. This will be fine on Postgres, but if you're using a different database, search like versus contains and do your research beforehand because your database may be different. Let's also talk about something called a named index versus just a regular index. A named index is what we have in our actual SQL query within our code. This is a named index right here. This word query is indeed a named index. We can also have a just regular index. A regular index is going to be, there will be a 1 here. So if you ever are looking at JPQL and instead of seeing a named query, you just see a 1 and a question mark here, that is an index versus a named index, which is what we have right here. Okay, so let's go into our code and let's actually start coding this. Okay, so let's go ahead into here and let's actually bring in the query annotation. So I'm going to go query, I'm going to say select, and the crazy thing is that IntelliSense will be able to detect all of this for you and tell you if there's any errors in your SQL, which is pretty amazing. So we're going to go like, and then we're going to concat here, and this is just SQL syntax. So if you were just writing the SQL out, you would not actually use the concat, but because we're inserting this in here and we're actually concatenating this, we have to put the concat SQL words. Just going to go into here and also go and add another ampersand so that this will finish this out. And we should be good to go. So next thing, also forgot that. Now what we need to do, we're going to be returning more than one club. Obviously, we're searching more than one club at a time. And we're going to go club, and we're going to go search. clubs. So search clubs, and we'll go string, and we'll say query, just like that, and we'll go Alt Enter. So now we actually have our repository method figured out. Let's go and let's implement this inside of the service. So now we need to actually add this. What we're going to do is we're going to go into our service, and we're returning club DTOs. So we'll just call this one search clubs. And it's going to, once again, take in a string, and we'll just call this query. Okay, so now we have our problem here, which is a good problem. We're going to go ahead and implement this search clubs. And within the search clubs, relatively simple, nothing new here. We're just going to go into our list. So we'll say a list of club. We may need to make a mapper for this, but we might not. Let's see here. So we'll go club repository, and we've got our search clubs here. So now we can actually search by the clubs. Okay, so we're going to be passing in our query, remember, because we're searching here. Then we're going to turn it into a stream and map over it. Pretty simple, just as we always do. So stream, we're going to go map, and it's going to return for each individual club. We want to turn this into a DTO, a club DTO, and then return it back. So we'll say map to club DTO. We're going to turn this into a club, and then we're going to convert it over, because that's what streams do. So now we've got all that figured out. Let's just go into our actual controller up here and implement the search string. Now this is going to be a little nifty. Watch what happens here. It's going to be pretty cool. I think this is it's a pretty elegant solution to this searching problem that we have. Is it really a problem? Not really, but I think it's cool nonetheless. So we're going to go into here. We're going to have a get mapping, and we'll go /clubs. So we have clubs, and we'll have a search. Then within the search, we're going to have a public. We're going to have a string. And we are going to search club just like this. And we're going to have what's called a request param, which is going to take a query parameter up in the actual URL. So this is going to not be passed in JSON. This request mapping is going to be passed via the URL string. And I'll show you, if you don't know what that means, I'll show you here in a second. So, and then we'll have model. Then we're going to go ahead and finish this out and bring this in. Oh, this is supposed to be request param. So we have a request param, and that looks good. Now we're going to go get our actual service to go get all of that data out of the database. So we'll go here, we'll say club DTO. We'll have clubs, and we'll go into our club service. We're going to search all of the clubs. We're going to search by query and add this to our model. So we need to inject this into our view so that it can actually be displayed on the web page. And we will pass in the clubs. So now it's attached to the view. Now all we need to do is we need to return the view. And the view that we're going to be returning is the clubs list. So we're essentially returning the clubs page, but we're just going to show the same exact view, but inject the searched data in it. The last thing that we need to do is we need to actually go into our actual clubs list page, and we need to add a form field in it, because all a search button really is, or all a search is you're making a form. So we're going to go down here. We're going to go right above our clubs. And what we're going to do is we're just going to inject it right above our for loop, so that if we put it in our for loop, it will probably mess things up. So that's one place where you do not want to put it. So then we're going to go into our th action. I spelled action wrong. Then we'll go into here. We're going to add a link expression. We will have clubs. We will have search, and that should do that. So, okay, so now we have class. And we'll add a form inline. We'll add a little bit of styling to it so it doesn't look too bad. We'll add some margins. So my2, my, lg, 0. And then we'll give it a little bit of margin bottom so that it's not scrunched up against everything. So we'll go give that some margin bottom. Then we're going to need to add our input so that we can actually send stuff back to the server. So we can send our query back to the server. We're going to have our class form control, and we will also have some extra margin and styling. So go to, and we'll say MB5, and this is going to be a type of search. It's a search button, and we'll say placeholder search running clubs. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this out so we can see it. So search running clubs, and we'll say this, we'll give this a label. So we'll say aria label is equal to search. Okay, and that looks good. So let's go ahead into here. Let me make sure that I have all my links, and let's go ahead into here and let's give it a go. Okay, so I'm going to implement test. So if I type in test, just like this, so if I type in test, what will happen is that I will get test here. I type in Charlotte, I get Charlotte running. We have successfully implemented our search functionality. That's going to be the video for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.